Hey everybody, welcome back here. Now, I wasn't really going to get into this because I am not a Lord of the Rings expert. Okay, I do know some of it. I have a very limited knowledge. I wouldn't say limited. I have a knowledge of Lord of the Rings, but I'm not an expert in it. I'm not going to say that I am an expert in it in any sense whatsoever. But I do know some things about Lord of the Rings, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I saw a lot of things being floated around about it. So I wanted to see and show what I have to say about it. Now, Amazon is bringing out a new series, Lord of the Rings. The Ring series rises inside the Rings of Power. It's the Rings of Power is what they're going to do. They did a preview of it showing some kind of very cheap looking preview showing some lava going through some things and some water. It wasn't very interesting, but it does what it has to do. Now, here's where we have to get a little technical going into this. Let me see if I could try to break this down a little bit and maybe get an understanding of it. Galadriel's world is a raging sea, far from the wise, ethereal, elven queen that Kate Blanchett brought to Peter Jackson's acclaimed films. The Galadriel played by Morfydd Clark in Amazon's upcoming, I hope I said that name correct, series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, is thousands of years younger, as angry and brash as she is clever, and certain that evil is looming closer than anyone realizes. Let me read back that pattern. Younger, as angry and brash as she is clever. Now, if this sounds familiar to anybody, it's because this is basically the same sort of setup, the same sort of character that they use for pretty much every female lead that they create and they use now. Pretty much the same thing. I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, by episode 2, her warning set her adrift, literally and figuratively, until she's struggling for survival on a raft in the storm-swept, sundering seas alongside a mortal castaway named Halbrand, who is a new character introduced in the show. Galadriel is fighting for the future. Halbrand is running from the past. Their entwined destinies are just two of the stories woven together for a TV series that, if it works, could become a global phenomenon. If it falls short, it could become a cautionary tale for anyone who, to quote J R R Tolkien, delves too greedily and too deep. Okay. J R R Tolkien is the man who created the novels that the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and all these things are based off of. He did this back some many years ago. He's dead now, but some many years ago he did this. He created these characters. He created this world of Middle-earth and everything. And now they've put in this thing here with this younger Galadriel. You know, I mean, they're doing a story with it. You know, hopefully they're not going to put some woman in armor with a half-cut, crew-cut thing and a ponytail on one side, something trying to show some sort of, oh crap, there. Okay. Now, you see, let me move to what it is. I'll come back to that in a second. Let me move to what it is people really have a problem with. This is one of the things I'm hearing people really roasting online about and talking about blatant blatant stupidness and not following Tolkien's book, and this is the problem. Now, diversity is one thing, but when you do diversity incorrectly, this is what you get, right? The fantasy series must make sense. Take a look at Game of Thrones, for instance. One of the reasons Game of Thrones was so successful, despite the fact that it was already written well and everything like that, you know, except for the last season, which let's agree was complete and utter rubbish, but it made sense based on what you're doing. Now, if I am doing I'm watching a fantasy series, and it is based on a period of time. Now, even if it's a different world or everything, it must be based and created around something that is done in this world. When Tolkien created Middle-earth, it was based off of influences from Finland, Iceland, Britain, Scandinavia, Norse mythology, all of which had no black people. Well, this is not me being racist. I'm just telling you the honest truth. It had no black people. For that period of time, for that location, this is like when I said in a previous video, you don't have black Asgardians. It doesn't work for the religion, for the time period. Now, here we have a black elf. It doesn't work. And this woman here is a dwarf queen. But if you remember from Lord of the Rings, it was stated that dwarf women have beards and they live underground, and because they have beards and things, most people mistake them for men and think that dwarfs don't have females. But they do have female characters. It's just they do have female in their society, but the females have beards. And also, they aren't black. I think this guy is probably from Game of Thrones. He looks like him. I could be wrong, but he looks like him. It must make sense. And I'm not. And let me say it. Now, if I'm watching a series based on a mythological world or something, but it's based, or even if it's not based on a mythological world, it's based in this world, and it's for the time period in Africa. Let's say hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. It's based in Africa, but you have, when you get to this African village, this African nation, you're seeing white people, you're seeing Indian people, you're seeing Asian people, and they're all there intermingling, living together. My first thought is going to be, one, what the hell are they doing there? Two, why are they there? Three, how is this supposed to make any sense? And four, why am I still watching this? It must make sense to what has been written. It must make sense to what is being portrayed. When you don't do that, this becomes tokenization. And tokenization, big up to Young Ripper, I think he's only created it, but also this is what it becomes. You say diversity, and when fans of it, and again, as I say, there are people who follow these books, and there's a whole movement behind it and everything, and they point out this. They get labeled as racist, they get labeled as bigots, because they are pointing out something that is not factually correct or factually right to either the time period or the story that's being told. But are you saying, okay, let's adjust it to suit? No. You have them attacking the fans online because of this. But this doesn't make sense, people. It doesn't. There were no black elves, there were no black dwarf queens or anything, and the dwarf queen is supposed to have a beard. It must stay true to what is being created. What has been created? This is J R R Tolkien's work. He has created, he crafted the world, he crafted the characters, he crafted the stories, the environment, everything. And you're saying now that you want to be diversified and diversive in it. If you want to do that, make your own show, make your own series, and you can do with it as you please. But when you're not sticking to what has already been incorporated, already been cemented as to what his work is, people are going to be upset. One of the reasons why Lord of the Rings, the 3-movie trilogy, was so successful, Peter Jackson had quoted and said that they were trying to stay as true to the story as possible. This is what Tolkien wrote, and this is what they want to stay true to, and not to add their own politics into it. This is adding your own politics into it. And when you add your own politics into it, you start to mess with the very foundation of what this story is built on. Now let's go back to this young lady here. And again, I stated before, let me go back to the actual thing here. Right. She's thousands of years younger, as angry and brash as she is clever and all of this. You know, this is what they do to these female characters. Instead of making them like actual people, they try to push this alpha female feminism thing that doesn't work. And when you look at the shows that have suffered because of it, you can see that. I mean, you look at Why the Last Man, complete disaster, because why? It didn't focus on what the show, what the story was about. It focused more on pushing a feminist agenda. Even if you look at shows like, let's say for instance, Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek Discovery has very good visuals, excellently done visuals, really interesting, but the stories, for the love of God, never make any sense. Even if you look at the last season, the 3rd season story, you had them going into the future and finding out about the burn, something that devastated the Federation and all of these things. You could have stretched that to 2 seasons and tell such a compelling story about a vast conspiracy involving different alien species and probably species from outside the universe, all sorts of things to really pull that home. No, instead what it was, some Kelpian man-child absorbed some radiation thing, and because they had a meltdown, caused all the dilithium crystals to explode. But none of that was as important as having 2 women fight it out for who win and control the Federation and what than the other. You push the feminine agenda to the front and leave everything else behind. You got it in Star Trek Picard as well. There are a number of shows where this mentality ruins the story. You can make a strong female character without having to try and shove feminism down people's throat. But whenever I talk about it, whenever I point out what they're doing with these characters, where they want to either swap men out for women or push this feminist agenda to the max at the expense of the story, you get accused of being, I don't know, of hating women and all of this drama. So you can't speak out about what they're doing to the female characters. You get accused of being a misogynist. You can't talk about them, about their racial diversity. That doesn't make sense. You're being called a racist and a bigot. So what are you really supposed to do? The show must make sense. showing this strong, brash female character. This is not how you write female characters. And it's constantly how you do it. And people don't have to know what the show is going to be because we have seen it many times before. How you do this, and it comes down to it. But when you do this, and you do this, you expect people to say, okay, it must make sense. The original story was created and crafted a certain way. J R R Tolkien created this world, told this story in his books. Diversity for the time period does not make sense. And you're not even doing the characters the way they're supposed to be done. But again, I just want to put in my 2 cents about this and say, this is why a lot of people are already saying it's going to fail, because you want to focus more on diversity than telling an actual story. Can anybody else say tokenization? But then again, when I talk out about it, I'm either a misogynist or a racist. Don't know how, but that's the way it's done. Alright, if you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell. You'll be notified every time I put out a new video. And let me know in the comments what you all think about this Lord of the Rings of Power diversification that they're doing. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.